The smarter you are, the easier it is to get stuck. Not because you run out of ideas, not because you lack ability, but because the smarter you are, the better you become at convincing yourself that you're making progress, when actually you're mostly just spending time thinking about making progress. Welcome to Professional Speaking. My name's John Ball. In this episode, I'm going to show you something that most speakers won't name directly: how intelligence, identity, and status can quietly trap you, and why so many speakers plateau, not because they lack ability, but because they've drifted away from reality. After 15 years coaching speakers, I've seen this pattern constantly, not just in beginners starting out, but also experienced speakers who should be further ahead than they are. Here's what we're going to cover: why smart people overthink instead of execute, how psychological limiter loops can keep you stuck, why the dip challenges your identity, not just your skill, and how to get back into real world momentum. Sound good? Let's get into it. The great philosopher Bertrand Russell once said that the trouble with the world is that the stupid are cocksure and that the intelligent are full of doubt. And if you see any truth in that statement at all, then this is an episode you probably need to listen to. I want you to sit with that for a second as well. Intelligence gives you awareness, it gives you nuance, it gives you the ability to see around corners, but it also gives you doubt. And if you're not careful, that doubt becomes hesitation, and the hesitation becomes inaction. So here's the pattern I see over and over again. Has anyone ever told you that you overthink things? I've heard it a few times. You may have dismissed it, but what if they were right? And what if you couldn't see it yourself precisely because you're smart? A psychological limiter loop is when your mind creates a self reinforcing cycle that keeps you feeling productive while actually keeping you stuck. And it looks a bit like this: I just need to refine this a bit more. Okay, so you delay action. No real feedback comes in. Uncertainty increases, so you refine some more. Now, from the inside, this feels like thinking. It feels like you're busy taking action. But from the outside, it's avoidance. And then comes the wall. Your mind isn't just slowing you down, it's building a wall between you and feedback, between you and visibility, between you and reality. Doubt hardens into a loop. The loop over time builds the wall. And once that wall is up, this stops being progress. It becomes a mental exercise. In fact, when you start to butt against that wall, you may even find yourself experiencing some physical symptoms: headaches, brain fog, eye strain, that all feel very real and stop you moving forward. Now, I want to make something very clear here. This isn't just a problem for people at the start of their journey, not just for beginners. New speakers hesitate often because they lack experience. Experienced speakers hesitate because they have something to protect. At the start, you're afraid of failing. Later, you're afraid of not being as good as you were or think you should be. And that's a different kind of fear, and it's harder to admit because from the outside, it doesn't look like fear at all. It looks like standards, it looks like professionalism, and it looks like craft. But if your standards are keeping you invisible, keeping you off the stage, keeping you from getting booked, they're protecting you, but they're not serving you. Now, Seth Godin calls the hard middle of any journey the dip, the place where it gets difficult before it gets rewarding. But here's what he didn't say, well, at least not directly. For speakers, the dip isn't where your ability gets tested, it's where your self image gets challenged. That doubt that Bertrand Russell talked about, it peaks right here. In the dip, you're not just asking, am I good enough? You're asking, am I who I think I am? And that question is much harder to answer with action. Let me be direct with you here. You've got potential, you've got ideas, you've got capability, but potential doesn't pay the bills. Bookings do. At some point, you have to stop perfecting the fantasy and start building the reality. Now, I very nearly never got up on a stage to do any kind of stand up comedy and open mic, even though it has been a dream, a bucket list item for such a long time. I thought I would do a comedy course at some point, and then I'd have to do that performance they do at the end of the course. And then it just never seemed like the right time to do it, or I'd have to travel too far, or be away from home for too long, or money wasn't there for it. There would always be some reason not to do it, and I never did. Then I got introduced to Judy Carter's book, The New Comedy Bible, and started to learn the structure of jokes. I was obsessed. I really wanted to get that stuff, even if it was just to make some of my speaking a bit funnier. But the more I got into that, the more I realized I wanted to be getting up on stage. I wanted to do open mic comedy, particularly. And so when a friend told me that there was actually an open mic scene in my city, I thought, oh, great, I'll do that. And I kept saying, oh, yeah, I'm interested, but maybe another time. I'll go and check it out first. I think that's what I said for about 6 months or a year, maybe. And my friend kept saying, "You should just go and do it." So I did. I one day, I had I had just interviewed Judy Carter for this show and was so inspired by my conversation with her that I contacted the guy who organized those events and put my name down for the next one. Big, scary action, but it pushed me to creating my first comedy set and to doing my first ever open mic night, and I'm so glad I did it. There are so many times in life where we can stop ourselves from moving forward with the things that can progress us just because we're worried that we might bomb, that we might suck, that we might not be as funny as we think we're going to be, or we might not have the charisma or presence or response that we think we're going to get. And not everything you do is going to be well received. That's just a fact of life. I can remember a point in my own journey where I had been refining a keynote for months. I wanted better slides, better stories, better positioning. But then someone asked me, when did you last speak to a room that you weren't already comfortable in? And I didn't have an answer for that because I realized I wasn't refining, I was hiding. And the wall I thought was protecting my standards was actually just keeping me away from the one thing that would have improved them, a dose of reality. So how do you get out? Well, 5 things here, and they build on each other. So take notes. Firstly, reconnect with reality. You don't improve in theory, you improve in contact with the real world. That means that real audiences, real feedbacks, real rooms are what you need, not better preparation, more exposure. Secondly, shorten the loop. The loop survives on a delay, so cut the delay. Speak more, test faster, get reactions, not opinions. An opinion is what someone tells you after the fact. The reaction is what happens in the room. Certainly see that much more clearly in stand up comedy. But one of these is useful, one is just data. Thirdly, lower the exposure threshold. Stop trying to show your best work and start showing your current work. Allow things to be in process, in development, whilst they're interacting with the outside world as well. Your best work is the enemy of your next step because best work requires certainty. And you can only get certainty from being out there and doing it. Number 4 is knock the wall down. If your mind has built a wall between you and reality, where you're more comfortable imagining doing all these things rather than actually doing them, your job is to knock it down. Not carefully, not strategically, and get a bulldozer, get a wrecking ball, knock it down. Book the talk, send the pitch, get in the room before you feel ready. You may not even know what you want to call your workshop yet, but offer it. You may only have an abstract for your talk, but start selling it. Get yourself out there, get pitching, and get booked. Number 5 then is act before certainty. Clarity isn't a prerequisite, it's a byproduct. You will develop it. You will not think your way into momentum. But when you are there, it's an incredibly powerful force, and really the only thing that's going to allow you to get into flow and real presence. You will act your way there, as in taking action. The speakers who move forward fastest are rarely the most prepared, they're the most exposed. Most speakers don't have a speaking problem. They have a distance from reality problem. They're refining, thinking, preparing, but they're not engaging with the one thing that actually improves their speaking reality. If you recognized anything of yourself in this, if you know you've been holding yourself back, if you've got the ability but not the momentum, then it might be time to stop trying to solve this problem alone. Because from the inside, this doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like thinking. You feel busy, and surely busy leads to results. Well, actually, no, not always. And that's exactly what makes it so hard to escape without outside perspective. If you want help breaking out of that loop and turning your speaking into something that actually creates demand and not just potential, you can book a call with me. The link is in the description. There's no expectations and no commitments. My goal will be to help get you on the right track, whether that's working with me in the future or not, that will get you moving. That's really what I want for you, and I hope that that's what you want for yourself. Well, that's it for today. Wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, have an amazing rest of your day. See you next time.